Hello everyone, and welcome to our day early comic review video. I'm Jason.
I'm Andy.
And we're with infinityfluxcomics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, where every Monday, after we're done bagging and boarding all the comics, we divide up the ones that we most want to read, the ones we think people want to hear the most about. We read them and we do this spoiler light review video, where we're going to tell you all the collectible reasons you might want the comics, all the first appearances, deaths, things like that. But more than that, with the first issues, we're going to tell you sort of more about what's going on in them, why you might just want to read them for just any reason, just because it's a cool comic and it's your taste. So we have a small week this week.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot. Usually, I think we review 12 to 14 books a piece. I think we're each doing just like 8 or 9 today. Yeah. The reason that is, this is a fifth Wednesday, and I know that sounds weird, but in this industry, the way they have comics released, they have them monthly. So it'll be like Batman comes out the first Wednesday of the month. And they don't deviate from that. Mm-hmm. So when there is a fifth Wednesday, which rarely happens, a whole bunch of comics just don't come out.
Yeah.
It's usually just some issue number ones.
Annuals a lot of the time.
Yep, they'll do annuals, which you'll see today. So there's just a little bit of history on why fifth Wednesdays tend to be small. But there are a few books I think you're going to want to hear about. So without further ado.
Yeah, I think fifth Wednesdays are a thing that I always wonder why the comic book companies don't capitalize on that. It's like, literally, if you release a book, maybe Marvel did this week with Thunderbolts, to be like, people don't have as many options as usual.
I think that's going to happen. Yeah, Thunderbolts #1's coming out this Wednesday, and I think because fewer comics are out, like you say, I think a lot of people are going to grab it, which is good. I'll get to it. But Andy always starts us out, though.
I'm starting off with Amazing Fantasy 1000. Now, this was funny because Jason even asked me, does it explain why this is issue 1000 of Amazing Fantasy? It does not. It does not give you a grid of every cover to every book to make up 1000. But it is celebrating 60 years of Spider-Man. So, going back to Amazing Fantasy 15 and the first appearance of Spider-Man, we get a bunch of stories, like they do a lot of times with these, that are kind of celebrating the character. So this one has 8 creative teams, and I'll go over some of them because I think this was one of the best reads of the week, and not because it has any, there could be some possible first appearances in here that go on later, but I think this is just really a well-written, great art book. So we have, we have a story called Just Some Guy, written by Michael Cho, where you see Spider-Man catching the same criminal time after time, and he wonders, why do you keep coming after me? Really good story, and it's written by Michael Cho, which I think is really interesting. He does the art and the writing. Probably one of my favorite stories in this was called His Sinister 60th, and it is a story by Dan Slott, and the art is by Jim Chung, about an older Spider-Man, and what's the thing that might finally take Spider-Man out? Is it the Sinister Six, or is it just like a lone criminal? And what does that mean for New York City? This was a really good story. There's one with a new character, I don't know if we'll ever see him again, called the Conspiraton. It's a giant robot. It's about the Daily Bugle, and a lot of these involve the Bugle and Jameson, but about everybody sees the headline they want to see. It's really funny.
That's a name that just rolls off the tongue.
I know.
Spiriton.
When I wrote it, my app was definitely like a red line underneath it. That's not a word. It's very true. But we have stories from Rainbow Rowell, Oliver Coipel. We have Giuseppe Camacoli. We have a great story called, at least in the beginning it tells you it's a sequel to Amazing Fantasy 15. So what happens directly after that? It's a little bit surprising. It's a twist, but it's by Kurt Busiek with art by Terry Dodson. Really great. There's a story by Neil Gaiman with art by Steve McNiven about when Neil Gaiman met Spider-Man as a child, and then later when he goes to visit Steve Ditko in his office, and Spider-Man's sitting there, and Neil Gaiman tries to figure out if he remembers him. It's a very interesting story. And then the one I think is the most like, oh, are these some new characters? there is a story by Jonathan Hickman, and the art is by Marco Cicchetto, which I mean is a great team, and it involves the Spider Verse and Spider-Man going to the what is it, the Web of Destiny? What's
Yeah,
Webb's place called? And there's all the different Spider-Men from the different universes. And Peter Parker just asks, "Does everyone else have just really bad luck, or is it just me?" And you'll have to see what they all say. But you do kind of get some, I believe, some new Spider-Men in there. You don't get their name or what universe they're from, but you can tell by their looks that there's some new ones. There's even a one-eyed Spider-Man that I think is really cool looking. Uh, so yeah, it's I believe a $9.99 book, oversized, but it's meaty. It's got great artists, great writers. So if you're a Spider-Man fan and it's a kind of a light week, I think this is a really good one to pick up. We've got some variants for it as well, like this Peach Momoko cover. He's got a spider on his face. We've got the Steve McNiven, and this is kind of your art for the Neil Gaiman story. We have this really nice J. Scott Campbell. And then we have a 1 in 25 Clark variant that we're selling to our customers for $25.
All right, I'm starting with the Marvel book as well, and I think this is going to be a very popular book, and I'm happy to say it's my favorite read of the week. I read Thunderbolts #1 by Jim Zub, and right on the cover you can see the new team. So it's led by Hawkeye. You have America Chavez, you've got Persuasion, you've got Power Man, but there are some other characters. So look down by David Nakayama's signature. There's that little dude down there. He is only on the cover, okay? And that's important because this book has a first appearance, and a lot of people are reporting it has two first appearances. It has the first appearance of a new character called Guts and Glory, who I'll talk a little bit more about, who is a member of this Thunderbolts team. And it's not just like a one-issue thing. It's not like, I'm here, and he gets killed, and it just gives gravity to things. But that little dude, his name is Egro the Unbreakable. And I only know that because it's just sort of been reported. So he's on the cover. It's his first appearance. He apparently is going to be a part of this team, but he is not in this issue. At the very end, it actually says, who is he? He's going to be in the next issue, but he's not in it at all. So no first full in this one, just the cover. But a first full appearance of Guts and Glory, who I would say reminds me a little bit of Cable. He's got the glowing eye. He has futuristic weaponry, guns and grenades and things of that sort. But that's where the similarities end. I'm not saying he is Cable. He's definitely not Cable. But there's some mystery going on about this guy that they set up right in the first issue. In fact, a couple really cool mysteries are set up, one of which I won't even tell you about. You'll have to get to the last page to see the mystery that I was like, where is this going? So really neat team. You get to see how it's put together. You get to see Luke Cage contact Hawkeye to try to get him to lead the team. So the story is interspersed. It's very much like, how did they get together, intermixed with, and here's their first mission. What is their first mission? Well, Wilson Fisk's Thunderbolts, the ones made up of villains, have escaped. So it's new Thunderbolt team versus old Thunderbolt team. I think it's a great way to start a first issue. The villainous Thunderbolt team is Taskmaster, Abomination, Agony, from Venom and all that.
Yeah.
U.S. Agent, Electro, but this is the female Electro, and Whiplash. So some heavy hitters. So a lot going on in this issue, just really good. There was some humor to it, some really good action, but really a lot of the mystery it sets up. So I do think this is a worthwhile read. And of course, there are many variants to it. So let's see. The first variant is the Izasaki variant with the team on there again. So you see Monica Rambeau there in the bottom corner. She actually goes by the name Spectrum now.
Yeah, that was just recently reported.
Yeah, and she goes by it in this issue. I think for the first time she announces that. And then we, of course, have the Caselli trading card variant. We've got the Todd Knock headshot variant. And then we have this 1 in 25 Sakura variant we're selling to our customers for $35.
So it looks like they're really playing up. Hawkeye is in it. Is he kind of the leader,
He
the
is.
main?
He is definitely the leader of the team. He's the one that Luke Cage contacts and says, "Hey, I've got this team together, but it needs a leader, and you're the person." But I want to say more. We'll talk at issue 2 because there's something important that happens.
It's definitely not
relevant to that.
Go well
right
for any
towards
of
the
them.
end.
Okay, next up for me is from DC. DC had a couple of oversized issues this week. This is Harley Quinn, the Real Sidekicks of New Gotham special, but it's the animated series. So if you enjoyed the Harley Quinn Eat, Bang, Kill tour miniseries,
It was wildly popular.
Wildly popular, and there is another miniseries like that coming out. This kind of goes in between. This is, you can see it's got a spine on it. This is a $9.99 one-shot. And in it, the character Tawny has gotten her own talk show. And so this is a kind of a talk show style. She brings a guest on, and then you get a short, well, in some cases, kind of long stories about those characters. So we have, first off, is a story about Vixen, where her and her girlfriend go on a double date with Harley and Ivy, which you can expect that how great that goes. We have a Batgirl story with the art done by Erica Henderson from Squirrel Girl and all of that. It's interesting to see her over at DC, where she has to go inside of a computer. It's really fun. A Clayface story, Dr. Psycho. There's a Joker story that basically has this version of the Joker going up against the Joaquin Phoenix version of the Joker, or implied to be same like red suit and everything. And what's interesting about this is Harley and Ivy are really only in the beginning. This is really a look at the supporting cast. You know, it's what it's called the real sidekicks. You get more fleshed out stories for each of them. I think that's cool getting to spotlight all of those. But this is not technically part of the Eat, Bang, Kill tour series, so you'll have to talk to your comic book store and tell them that you want this if you're reading the other one, because this is a more pricey issue, and I feel like a lot of stores will be a little bit more hesitant to put a more expensive book in someone's box if they don't know if they want it or not. So if you want it, let your store know, because it's not part of that main subscription. And I think a lot of people enjoy it. And I just have the one cover for this.
Okay, so I read Wonder Girl Annual 2022. So right now, Yara Flor does not have a current series, but they went ahead and said, hey, let's show what's going on with her after the trial of the Amazons. So let's give her an annual.
She's kind of couch hopping, couch surfing. You know, she's got her miniseries and hops onto an annual. No real book to lay her head.
So this starts out with a story about her Pegasi, which she does clarify that's the singular way to talk about Pegasus. Is, her Pegasi. We get an origin story for that. But the real story in this is Yara Flor returns to Brazil. So she's been away for a while. Think back to her original Wonder Girl series. And there's people who she met. There was the guy she was interested in. We haven't seen him in a while. Well, she runs into him. And guess what? He's got a new girlfriend. But it can't be that simple. It's a monster. In fact, the monster's name is the Cuca, which is a Brazilian Amazonian monster. And I had to look into this because I was like, is this a first? It's not. This monster was originally in Wonder Girl #3, just in a different form. And now it's back to try to steal Wonder Girl's guy. So it's up to her and the Escasitas to try to defeat this monster. So that's a lot of what is going on in the Wonder Girl Annual. It just sort of catches us up with... It really puts her back into the life she was doing before the trial of the Amazons. That's a lot of what this issue does.
Is there any hints to what's next for her?
No, to tell you the truth, other than it just kind of like puts her back into the world that Joel Jones had sort of created. It doesn't exactly... I mean, she's with the Escasitas... And anytime they're going to be in anything, she's sort of like their leader. So There's a lot of Brazilian legend and lore to this issue too. Parts that break away to tell you legend and lore of the Kuka monster and things like that. So there is a variant for this. It's the Wild Goose variant, but we sold out of it, so I actually don't have it here to show. But there, just want to let you know, if you collect variants, there is a variant for this one because not all the books this week have a variant.
No.
Yeah.
Well, next up for me is another one-shot. You can tell it's the 5th Wednesday because it's a lot of one-shots, a lot of annuals. So this is Power Rangers Unlimited, the Death Ranger #1. This is just a one-shot for Power Rangers fans. I looked into it. This is not the first appearance of the Death Ranger. I believe that was in issue 21.
Right.
But this is the first appearance of a character named Sister Supernova. And what's this issue about? It's kind of the origin story of the Death Ranger. So there's kind of a mom telling her kids, I guess they're well aware of the Power Rangers lore and everything about this fable of this morpher that could bring people back from the dead. And all the kids are like, oh, that's super cool. I want to find that morpher and everything. She's like, no, listen to the story and you'll see how that is not a good thing. Then we get the origin of the Death Ranger and what happens with him. And then maybe at the end, who might be seeking that power for themselves, someone a little bit more familiar. So it's a cool one-shot. If you're reading the Power Ranger series, I think you'll be way more familiar with some of the characters they use. I've only been reading sporadically, so I recognize some of them and some of them I didn't, but it wasn't too hard to follow because of that. But very cool, really cool design for the Death Ranger. So that is our A cover. We have our, I believe it is, we have the Foil Montez cover. Like you said, all the people have been collecting these. If you got them from the beginning, you have got quite the collection of Rangers holding their helmets.
A long box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we have the Valerio 1 in 10 variant that we're selling to our customers for $15. And then the regular, this is the 1 per store Montez variant that we're selling to our customers for $15.
Okay, before I get to my next one, I have to go back to Thunderbolts because I forgot to mention. Also out, so this is a different Thunderbolts comic. This is Marvel Comics Presents Thunderbolts. This is nearly graphic novel size. So this is just them reprinting a lot of iconic Thunderbolt stories to go along with the launch of the new series. So if you want to know about this team from over the era, this is the one to get. It's just $7.99. It feels like it should cost about $14.99 though. I mean, this is a heavy book.
It's almost like a little trade.
Yeah, exactly. So the next one I'm actually going over is House of Slaughter #8 is out. And in this one, we have our character Edwin, who was introduced a few issues back, sort of our focal character for this new arc. And he's with Hermes, who is his art brush. Yeah, it's which is his monster / familiar is trapped within this thing. So the two of them are having a long discussion in this because Edwin wants to lure a dragon out and catch or slay a dragon, and this hasn't been done in ages. And they discuss why would he do this, how can he do this. So you get to see the planning of it, somewhat the execution. I'm not saying you get to see exactly where it goes, but what I will say is through all this talk, Edwin ends up learning some things about himself. So some things that maybe he didn't know. And let's see. Yeah, this issue, not a lot of story progression, like some good character building. Not a lot of story progression, but a very artful issue. You'll have to see with the art in the panels what they did exactly. A very artful issue. So we have a few variants for this. We have the body bag variant, as they've been doing. And then we have the Deladera variant. And there is a 1 in 25 virgin version of the Deladera variant that we're selling to our customers for $25.
Cool. At least, we got an ongoing series out this week, too.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, not all just one-shots. Next up, we have part 4 of Star Wars Obi-Wan. So as Obi-Wan continues to brace for the sandstorm that is just now hitting, he is reminiscing about his time, this time later Clone Wars era. And it is a story where Obi-Wan and Anakin get tasked on a super secret mission. So secret that they can't communicate anything about it through their comms or anything like that. It is kind of, they've got to go to this admiral and get it directly from him and then go on this mission. And that is because there is a former Republic soldier or leader that has gone rogue and is now attacking people on both the Republic and the Separatist side. And they need, and Obi-Wan has a history with him, and they need them to go track him down and do something about him. This is really cool because it starts off, you're like, okay, I think I know where it's going. But I'll say it does end up being, they have to go to a Sith temple that is from the Jedi-Sith Wars. So the stuff we don't get to see too often, and it's pretty creepy. You'll have to read it and find out, but I feel like this is a really good issue that explored a lot of kind of what the Clone Wars meant and what the Jedi were tasked to do, and was that in line with their beliefs and all of that. Really cool issue, and I believe we only have one more issue of Obi-Wan left after this, so definitely a cool one. You can see kind of some of the creepiness with those suits, those clone trooper suits. Very horror focused issue. And we have some variants for it. First off, we have this really nice Terry and Rachel Dodson variant. And then we have the Sprouse Choose Your Destiny Mundi variant.
All right, I read Moon Knight Black, White, and Blood #4. So this is the 4th comic in the anthology series. This one, like the others, have 3 different tales in it. The first tale has Moon Knight, and he's sleeping. It's like you get to see his dreams. And in his dreams, he plays this really weird, deadly variant of tic-tac-toe, where there's almost no O's, there's almost always X's, and all the X's are linked to death.
Wow.
That's the best way I could describe it. I mean, it's a very dreamlike story.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one a lot. The second one is about, he takes on a cult where this new god decides, hey, I like you. You're working for me now. Moon Knight doesn't really take well to this, but this god sort of links himself with Moon Knight to where he can't get away. But what the god doesn't realize is that Moon Knight is more psycho than you can believe. You don't want to link yourself to Moon Knight, so that story has a really good ending to it. And then the third story, Moon Knight goes up against Bast, the Egyptian cat goddess. So that's generally what is going on in the 4th issue of Moon Knight Black, White, and Blood #3. And we have this Lozano variant.
How many more issues of that do we have?
I think that might be it. I can't remember if there's a 5th or not.
No, I know they originally started out, they were pretty long and they were shortening them, and then I think the last few we've only gotten 4 or 5.
I think this might be the last one.
Okay. Of it. I feel like that's been a really strong one in the Black, White, and Blood.
Everybody loves telling Moon Knight stories.
Yeah.
Because you could take him to space, you could take him, in a dream, you could have him battle himself.
Yeah,
Like, he's so psychological, but also in the regular world too.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Okay, next up is another giant issue from DC. This is DC's Saved by the Belle Reve. So this is, for the most part, centered around on schools, as you can kind of get the idea. But I was very surprised to see some of the stories in here. Like, we have a new Gotham Academy story from Becky Cloonan, and it's been a long time since we've been back to Gotham Academy and maps and all of those characters. We also get a Suicide Squad story that uses the team from the movie. So you've got Peacemaker, you've got Harley, You have King Shark. You even have Weasel in this. Ooh, I don't think we've seen Weasel in a comic for quite a while.
I like Weasel. I have Weasel's first appearance.
And,
just because of the movie, honestly.
And it's a little mix of the movie with the team and everything you get, but there's some other supporting characters in it from the DC universe. So I feel like if you've seen the movie but you've never really read a Suicide Squad book, I mean, that's perfect. There's a Super Son story. This is back when Damian and Jonathan were younger, and it's pretty funny because there's a few panels that run parallel as they are getting ready for school, and Alfred is cutting Damian's hair and Superman's cutting Jonathan's hair, but Superman has to do the thing where he like reflects his heat vision off a mirror to cut Jonathan's hair. It's pretty fun. And then we have a Green Arrow and Speedy story. We have the return of the Tiny Titans. So from Art Balthazar and Franco, we're back to Tiny Titans. It was a really fun all ages book. From a few years ago, we have a Black Lightning story, an Azrael story, and a Nightwing and Batgirl story where they are going to a dance. So a lot of really fun stuff in this one. Once again, no real first appearances or like big things happen in it, but if you're just looking for a bunch of fun one-off stories involving these characters, this one's great. It's 80 pages and it is $9.99. That is our main cover, and I don't think this one had a regular B variant.
Okay, so I read Harley Quinn annual for 2022. So this is funny because most annuals are away from the main storyline. This is not. This directly connects with the Task Force XX storyline. In fact, this is the last part of it. And so basically you have the Element X alien who could take over the bodies and minds of people going up against Harley and Luke Fox and their forces. They're going to have to find some way to try to defeat it. In this issue, the alien goes into Blackgate Penitentiary because it wants more powerful bodies to take over. So that's a big problem. Now they're up against superpowered individuals. But you'll have to read it to see how that turns out. I can tell you, though, that Harley comes up with at least 2 nicknames for Luke Fox in his new outfit, both of which he does not like at all. So, but, you know, you got to have those moments of levity in Harley Quinn. So, I will say, by the end of this issue, Task Force XX storyline is resolved. However, there's a backup story, a smaller one, where Harley goes to Las Vegas. And some things get cooking in that story that are going to continue in the upcoming issues of Harley Quinn. So it sort of started the next arc in this issue as well.
Is that next arc the death of Harley Quinn?
You know what? I think maybe there's something in between, but maybe, because you're right, that's the next one I know the title of.
Yeah.
So you might be right. I will say, though, Harley Quinn's been weekly up to this point. It's not going to be weekly anymore. Now that Task Force XX is done, it's going back to a monthly series. So we have the Ryan Sook homage variant. We have this 1 in 25 Gian Domenico variant that we're selling to our customers for $25. And lastly, I wanted to mention there is a really good Zerdy variant. That's with an S-S-Z, Zerdy. Excellent artist. We had the opportunity to meet him. He stopped by the shop a while back. We're already sold out of it, but look for that
That's
one.
how good it is.
Store. Yeah, it's good. It's really nice.
Okay, next up I have a kind of a double feature. Let me make sure I'm grabbing the right one. First off, I have X-Men number 14. This is a Axe tie-in. But you can tell that most of the X-Men stories are going to either be in the main Avengers Eternals X-Men book or in the, I believe, 3-issue miniseries that's going on with it. So in this one, the first part of the story is less about that and is more about Iceman and someone writing an article on Iceman. And we see Iceman do some really cool stuff and a bunch of powers. That's kind of our first story, but then the ending story is actually where this Celestial has said he's going to judge everyone on the Earth. Cyclops decides to walk up to him himself and confront him and say, "I'm ready to be judged." And you have to see how that goes, and what does Cyclops get, the thumbs up or the thumbs down? Because that's the way he judges. So you'll have to see Cyclops. I mean, even standing up against a Celestial is a very good talker. So that is a really interesting issue.
Captain America didn't even get a thumbs up.
Yeah, and so Cyclops, well, you'll have to see. And the other one is Gambit #2. And I did not get a chance to read this. I've got to skim through it, but this is, of course, by Chris Claremont. So if you are a classic X-Men fan, we ordered a ton of #1 and completely sold out like the same day. So this one is really heating up. If you missed it, go and try and grab yourself a #1 and a #2. We also have a variant for that. This is the Daughterman Hellfire Gala with Gambit in a really practical outfit.
All right, so I read the variants #3. I think out of most every Marvel comic, this is the one I've had to explain to people what it's about because of the title and everything. It's a good comic too. You know, it's Gail Simone, and she always has some good ideas for some original stuff to do. But to catch everyone up, so Jessica Jones has been having these headaches lately, and she finds out from somebody else who the Purple Man had been taking over that he is able to plant things in their minds that like will affect them later. It's like a time delay thing, and I mean like years later. And she sees this affect this other person. So now Jessica Jones is worried that the headaches are related to the fact that something the Purple Man has put in her might go off. It might make her kill her family. It might make her do anything. So she's worried about that. Meanwhile, as far as the name of the variants, different versions of Jessica Jones from across the multiverse show up out of the blue. She's trying to figure out why. Last issue, she got in a fight with 2 of them. So this issue, she finally sits down with some of them to discuss who are they, why might they be there. I'm not saying this gets resolved, but that's some of what goes on in this. The other thing that's happening in this issue is Luke Cage. Something bad comes after him. He may be in danger, and so might their daughter, Dani. So that's what's going on in the variants. Issue #3. You can feel like you're smart, explain to your friends who see it on the wall and are like, what? The variants? And yes, there is a variant cover to this. We sold out of it already. It is the Cola variant. So when we don't have variants, it's because we do the pull box first.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to play with people's comics. These aren't owned by anyone yet. And so when we don't have it, it usually means that people have signed up after we place the order.
Yep.
It just means we've gained people on the series and we didn't have any to show. So, but there is a Cola variant for this, so look for that in your store.
And is She-Hulk in that issue?
Yeah, She-Hulk's in it quite a bit because Jessica goes to her because she's so afraid if something goes off in her mind and she might be under Purple Man's control from the past. She needs a heavy hitter to stop her. So
that's pretty interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Okay, next up for me is Ant-Man. We have Ant-Man #2. So this is the 4-issue miniseries where each issue takes on a different Ant-Man. Oh, yeah, Ant-Man #2. So issue 1 was Hank Pym.
right.
And now this one, they've not got to Scott Lang yet, even though they talk about him. This one is actually about Eric O'Grady, the irredeemable Ant-Man. And it's really fun. If you're not familiar with him, they give you a really good recap in the style of his old series, where an ant in the beginning of it gives you a recap. And this ant in this one says that he's like the descendant of the ant that used to do the intros to the book. So you can kind of get a sense of the humor in this. But he considers himself the worst Ant-Man. He's self-proclaimed worst Ant-Man. So if you've never read anything about him, I think you will enjoy this one. I think they know that this is probably the least known Ant-Man, and so it does kind of the most catching you up on the character and his history and where he kind of fits into the Ant-Man timeline. So, fun issue of that, and then we have a variant by Cola.
Okay, so I read the Flash 2022 annual. So, sort of like the Harley annual, this one does have to do with the main Flash storyline a bit, but then it takes a wild turn into something else. I think you already read this
I
one,
read
didn't
this
you?
back when we did the original Comics from the Future for it, and I could read it digitally, and I was like, oh my gosh, how do you explain this book to
Yeah,
people?
we get early copies of certain comics. That is one of the nice things about being a store. So I will say there is some plot to this
Mm-hmm.
outside of it. Like, for instance, there's a new mayoral candidate for Central City who I think this is going to be an important thing going forward, who's promising to cut down on crime and may have some superpowered people to help them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and that's like a one-page thing. Then they're like, now let's get away from that. Instead, Wally and Linda finally get a chance to talk about Linda having powers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, their conversation, they talk it over pretty well, but there's a lot that isn't known. Like, how does she get the powers? And they don't really figure that out. I think that's going to be an ongoing mystery. However, what this really is Linda has to go somewhere, and Wally has some time on his hands, so he's finally going to read the book she's been writing. You know, Linda, she's trying to be a novelist.
Yeah, she's never written fiction before, and this is her first crack at fiction.
So Wally sits down and reads this, and you, the reader, that is what the annual really is. You are reading her book, which you will notice the main characters look a lot like her and Wally, but this is like a heavy fantasy romance book.
Fabio Wally.
Yeah, Fabio Wally, yeah. So there's a lot of humor to it, but you know, it's that sweeping, grandiose,
Mm-hmm.
epic fantasy romance tale. So it made me laugh in a lot of parts. I mean, I just love every issue of Flash. The
Yeah.
writer just has a great time doing whatever he wants to do,
Mm-hmm.
and just you get to be along for the ride. So if that sounds good, I think everybody on Flash knows what to expect
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
far as it just doing that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, you know, it's that story within a story
Mm-hmm.
is what this one does. So that's generally what's going on in Flash Annual for 2022, and this has no variant.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't
It,
know why. I don't know what
yeah.
happened, but there is no variant to this.
That's weird. You'd think they would either all the annuals would have one variant, or they would all have whatever, or no variants. But they've kind of pick and
Yeah,
choose which ones do.
some artists must have gotten too close to the time, and then they were like, "Well, it's too late." Oh well. So.
Down the line, you're gonna have a random variant that has long-haired Wally. You'll be like, "Oh, that was the one that's supposed to be
Yeah,
for the
right.
annual."
Yeah, the variant should have just been the book cover that they show
Yeah.
in this.
Okay, and my last one I have is Superman. Superman Warworld Apocalypse. Of course, it says number one, but this is actually the final part of the Warworld story that has been going on for quite a while now. So the best thing I could say about this is, well, actually, it's a good issue, but if you've been waiting to read about all of this, this is not a good jumping on point. This is the final part. It's kind of set up like an annual. It's oversized, and it's the action issue. It is Superman versus Mongol. It's him with his new ultimate power. Now, you know, he's supposed to be even more powerful than he was before. And it just wraps all that up. All of the supporting characters, all of the authority characters that were in it, all of the people on Warworld that he's kind of rallied up. You get to see nice endings for each of them. And it ends, I won't give it away, but back on Earth. And you get to see a much anticipated reunion of Superman and someone. So, uh, don't miss out on this one if you've been reading it, because this will complete your series. And then next issue we have the official kind of return of Kal-El to the main Earth universe and see what that means with his new power. And we just have the one cover for that.
Okay, so the last book that we want to make you aware of is Fortnite X Marvel Zero War issue number 4 comes out. So it's the penultimate issue. So that is the regular cover. They got a lot of good cover artists on this.
Oh, yeah.
Check this out. This is the Phil Noto cover. Then you have a Stephanie Hans cover. You have, I really like this one. You got the Ron Lim cover. Patch is in love.
Man.
and he is he's getting down.
Well, you know, he's had a
classic way.
long time to learn how to dance, so he should be good at it.
Yeah, and it's okay if you step on his toe because his healing factor.
That's true.
So here's the 1 in 25 Kale new variant that we're selling to our customers for $20. And lastly, there's a 1 in 50 Jen Bartel variant
Ooh.
for $45. That's what I'm saying. Like some A-list cover artist on this Fortnite X Marvel. Okay, so that's our show for this week. About a little more than half a show of a normal week. I'm sure we'll be back with tons and tons of things next week. So for those of you who want to see what our co-host Megan's up to, she will be on Whatnot tonight at 7 o'clock selling comics. Otherwise, all three of us will be back on Friday for comics from the future. I was going to say comics for the future. I was like, that's not right.
It's for the future and from the future.
Yeah, there you go. So thanks for joining us. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe as we continue our slow, steady march towards 2K.
Yes.
So thank you, and we'll see you next time.